Ever wondered why some cash practices and cash practice owners that you talk to seem to just be thriving? They seem to just be booking all the patients that are possibly coming in. They're calling their practice and they're getting all these folks booked, but you're struggling with cost and insurance objections and you're not sure how to overcome them. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly the most important things that you should be saying on your first patient phone call, as well as how to remove all the fluff that you have going on with the rest of your team. So, here's what you're going to learn in this video. I'm going to talk to you about all the extra fluff that a lot of front desk include that are just super unimportant to actually getting patients to book. And I'm going to uncover two secrets, the only two important things that you need to be including on that first patient phone call so that we actually get people to show up. We actually get them to not object to cost and insurance, and they're actually going to complete that entire plan of care. So, I talk to a lot of cash practice owners and I see all kinds of things, right? Folks just really struggling with, especially cost and insurance objections, especially with colder traffic that they're talking to. And I've listened to, gosh, over 1,000 phone calls at this particular point with cash practices. And there's some common trends that I see for the practices that are very successful at booking people, getting people to actually show up, and things that are super unimportant, right? And those are the things I want to cover today. Some of the fluff that I see that so many people have on the call is like patients are going to call in. Oftentimes, the first thing they may ask is, "Hey, do you take my insurance?" Or "I was Googling," or "I saw you on Facebook or Instagram, and I was just hoping to figure out whether or not you guys took my insurance." And oftentimes, your front desk will just simply say, "No, we're actually out of network. We're a cash practice, but here's why." And then they try to qualify why it is that you guys are great, and they do all the things, right? Hey, we're one-on-one for the hour. Our doc has all these certifications, or we've got this gadget that no one else has, and it's like nobody cares about that stuff, right? And so we got to be able to deflect that insurance question on the front end, but I don't need all this extra fluff in the phone call, right? Is like we just, if the patients aren't asking about it at the very beginning, what you'll do is you'll spend 2 to 3 minutes. Oh yeah, I've got shoulder pain, or oh, I've got knee pain. Okay, sounds great. Have you seen a PT or chiro before, or have you been to a functional med doc before? And oftentimes they'll continue to say, they'll just be like, oh yeah, like I've seen them. And then your front desk finds out, hey, I've got pain. They've seen somebody before. They need our help. And then they'll just get right in 2 or 3 minutes into the phone call, starting to talk about what the cost is. Hey, we're out of network. And if you have really warm traffic, you might be able to overcome some of that. But when the traffic is not quite as warm, if you're running ads, or maybe you're new to the area, or maybe you're starting to increase your Google presence a little bit, you're gonna have a much harder time. Or the next words out of their mouth is, "Hey, this is too expensive, and I need to be able to use my insurance," right? The other thing that your front desk attempts to do is they really try to sell all the things that you guys do, why you're better, why you're one-on-one, all the gadgets that you have, the advanced certifications, like all the Google reviews that you might have. And again, all that stuff is great, but we don't need to oversell. Really, the patient only cares, hey, is this a clinic that they can help me solve my problem and actually get back to the things that I want to be able to get back to doing, right? And that's the only thing that matters. And so, shifting from all of this fluff, again, if you missed our training from last week, I did a whole training on like common red flags that I see in the first phone call. Definitely go back and check it out. I'll link it below as well. But get rid of all of these red flags, and now we need to focus on what are the two goals of this first phone call? What are the two things that we actually need to cover, and what's going to start to unlock some of these conversions for the folks that we're talking to on the phone? Because there's a big distinguishable difference for the clinics that are scheduling people relatively easily and the clinics who are having a tough time converting people. And oftentimes that front desk and the conversation that they're having is a big piece of it. And this is where, having a phone script can be helpful, but like I don't need a script. I just need to solve these two problems, or handle these two big major things on the phone call. And we're going to solve 99% of the things that and the objections that you get. And the key is to handle these objections before we actually get into the clinic. Anywho, let's dive into point number one here. The main goal and the only thing that's important when it comes to these first phone calls is, what is the problem? Why is that problem a problem? Right? What most of you guys do is you find what the problem is. Hey, I've got shoulder pain. And you just stop there. And people deal with pain for forever. I mean, months, years, weeks, you name it, right? Uh, They just deal with it. And if we only find out what that problem is, somebody else down the road will be a cheaper option, or somebody else will be a better salesman and convince them to purchase whatever product it is that they have. It's the same reason runners will go through 18 million pairs of shoes before they'll come see somebody. Like, I kid you not, I was in my clinic when I was still treating patients, and I had a guy, he had some foot pain, and this is back when my sales skills were not great, but this particular guy came into the clinic. He came with an absolute bag full of stuff. I mean, I bet you there was 2,000 plus dollars in shoes, like braces, plantar fascia, stretching stuff. Like it was ridiculous. And this guy didn't want to commit to a plan of care, and it's all because I didn't find out why his problem was a problem. And what do I mean by that? Because some of you guys are like, I don't know what you mean. uh, the problem is a problem because of what this is, what running is, or what this knee pain or what this foot pain or shoulder pain, whatever's going on, is keeping them from doing, and why is that important to them? And I'll give you an example, like classic easy runner example, right? Hey, I'm a runner and I've got knee pain. That knee pain keeps me from running as much as I would like to. I'd ideally love to be able to run 5 times a week, about 20, 30 miles. And currently, I'm only able to run, I don't know, 5, 10 miles. I've created a distinguishable gap if I'm talking to this person and I've got that information. I want to run, I'm currently only running 5 to 10. I want to run 20 plus miles a week, right? There's an obvious gap there. That's the first level or the first depth of conversation that I'm having. But the problem is a problem because of the next step. And this is where most people stop. They don't take their phone calls to this level of depth, which is, hey, really, I like to run because I run a business or my job is really stressful. And that's my ultimate time to have some stress relief. And it allows me to show up to my running group twice a week, which is the only place I have community. Because I'm an adult male and it's hard for me to find friends outside of the gym or my running group, right? And so now that level of community allows me to disconnect. It allows me to de-stress a little bit during the week. And when I can't do those things, I'm super stressed. I'm worried all the time. And ultimately, I start to eat like crap, right? Because running's a keystone habit. And now I'm worried about gaining weight. I used running as my ability to lose weight over time. Now, that's obviously like very extreme, like deep points. And it's hard to get to that point with every single person on the phone call. But ultimately, that's why the problem is a problem, right? Is because now I'm worried about gaining weight. I'm worried about my knee getting worse. And I'm super freaking stressed because I can't get to my running group, right? Or for some people, it is, hey, they have a race coming up, right? And they want to be able to hit a PR for the first time. And they've been training for the last 15 months to hit a PR at this particular half marathon or marathon, whatever they have coming up. And that's why the problem is a problem. It's not knee pain, right? Again, people deal with this stuff forever. They'll just blow by it. But ultimately, there's been some change in their life right now that prevents them from accomplishing what it is they're looking to accomplish. And if we can find that on the phone call, nothing else really matters, right? Nothing matters about cost. Insurance suddenly doesn't matter in any capacity. All of that information is critical to get into that level of depth. And most of the time, the front desk really struggles to get to that depth. That if you own a cash practice, and there's probably a time where you took all of your new patient phone calls, and you're able to overcome that and get some of that information because of your just authority, right? But now that you've handed those calls off, your front desk is going to have a much harder time actually getting to that level of depth on the call. Now, on the flip side, there are a portion of you guys where pain may not be the primary motivating factor. We run some Facebook ads. Every once in a while, we'll get some performance minded folks who they don't really have any pain. They just want to be able to get back to running a marathon. They want to hit a PR and they kind of want somebody in their corner. Or we work with some dental practices as well, right? And the dental practices, like, folks aren't really dealing with pain at that point. Now they are, but if somebody's got a cracked tooth or they need a root canal, like they don't care what it costs. Like they're miserable. They just need that stuff fixed yesterday. Now, so what do you do in those situations? You need to figure out you almost, instead of the problem, it's what's the goal and what's preventing them from achieving that goal, right? And so for somebody who is, really performance minded, I might ask them, hey, what's important for you when choosing a physical therapist? Or, why are you reaching out now? And ultimately, I want to find out the gap between where they are and where they want to go from a performance standpoint, and what is preventing them from being optimal, right? What's preventing them from being at their best self? And that's why the problem is still a problem, right? It's a different problem. The problem is, normally pain, but in this particular case, the problem is performance based, and we want to make sure we're actually helping this person solve that secondary problem, which is performance. Or in the case of a dental practice, right? Hey, maybe somebody got burned by the dentist before, right? They went, they had a really crappy experience. They're mortified to go, sit in a dental chair, and they maybe now they have dental insurance, or maybe now their spouse is dragging them to the dentist, and suddenly they're like, man, I really don't want to go, and your front desk just says, oh yeah, let's get you, let's go ahead. I hear you're new to the area. Let's go ahead and get you scheduled. And it's like, I haven't really solved what it is that this guy's trying to solve, which is, hey, I'm worried about going to the dentist because I haven't been in a really long time. I got burned before because I felt like I way overpaid, and I just felt like the experience wasn't great. And now I'm looking for a new dentist, and that's why that particular person's problem is a problem. Hey, it's fear as a motivating factor, or they had a poor experience at the other provider's office. And so asking them why, what's important for you when choosing a new dental provider. Whatever the case may be, this person has a problem. It just looks different than pain. And we need to be able to actually have a conversation and try to understand the person that we're talking to on the other side of this, what it is that's going on in their mind and what's motivating them to reach out. And honestly, you could wrap up most of these phone calls with that. But every single time I go back and I listen to a phone call, either from our practice or, some of our practices that we're working with on a more private basis, where I actually audit their phone calls, the biggest thing I hear is that we aren't finding why the problem is a problem. We find out that they have shoulder pain, and then we get this long, like 3 or 4 year history about why they've been dealing with this, and like, I saw your ad on Facebook, and like I've been to see a chiro, I've been to see a PT, I've seen everybody under the sun, and I'm just not better. And I get this really long, drawn out history. And we think because they've had a long, complicated history that now suddenly they're just going to magically come in. But the moment price starts to come up, we haven't got them to verbalize why they're limited or what problem and why that problem is a problem in their life today. And if we can actually dive into that information to a much more in-depth level, cost of insurance doesn't even matter. But that's the biggest thing that's missed on a lot of people's phone calls, is we're not reaching the depth that we need to. And we very quickly just start talking about cost and insurance and why they should come see us, right? So that's the first big thing. Find the problem. Why is the problem a problem? And ask a bunch of questions around that. And then the next portion of this, the secondary goal of the phone call, is I need to eliminate all cost and insurance objections before that person shows up in the clinic. And I have tried every possible iteration of this in my own practice. When I first started, it was, I'm going to try to talk to this person as long as possible, get as much information out of them. And I'm going to try to be a little coy, and I'm going to try to be a little like beat around the bush and almost a little sleazy with how I try to frame the fact that we're actually out of network. And I tried to come up with every cutesy language that you could come up with. Oh no, like, we can work directly with your insurance. I can get you a super bill, and that's going to, you can submit that to your insurance, and most of our patients do see reimbursement. And I tried to like skirt around it. And what that led to was patients were coming into the clinic, they were confused, and the first thing they would say when I presented my care plan to them was, "Oh, well, like, does insurance cover any of that?" And so now I'm sitting here, I'm like, well, I took the first phone call. I told them we're out of network in a roundabout way. And now they're asking me that in the clinic. And so when I would ask them to commit, the first thing that they would say was asking about insurance and cost. And then they were like, well, let me contact my insurance company. And I lost all of these people, right? Because I didn't handle the cost and insurance objection while I was actually on the phone with them. And so that was one problem. So then the next challenge became, well, once we started to be a little bit more forthright, and you absolutely need to be forthright. Like I finish like the only scripting I have in most of our phone calls at this point is actually at the end, where I want my front desk to tell them specifically, hey, we are an out-of-network practice, or we are a cash-based practice, meaning I don't work directly with your insurance company. However, if you do want to get some reimbursement, I can help you with it. But most of our patients, they don't even deal with that because of the quality of care that we're able to provide in our practice, right? And so I'm just very forthright with that information. But what we also don't want to do is we also don't want to scare patients away by quoting, $4 or $5,000 care plans if you guys do some of those on the phone. I don't even know if the patient needs it. And granted, most patients probably do, but also I don't want to ruin the relationship before they actually come in. And so then that led to a pendulum swing, which was, all right, I'm going to try to get them some of this information, or I'm going to do everything I can to at least drag this person into the clinic for an eval. And these people weren't actually bought into the idea of a plan of care with me at that point, right? Or if when we started running Facebook leads for Facebook ads, we got these patients who, at least I'm hoping to kind of come in for the assessment, or they'd be blindsided when, we were running a front end offer of like, 57 or $67 for the eval. And then now I'm asking them for 225 plus for follow-up sessions. It created this really weird divide. And so I have to absolutely handle all of these cost and insurance objections on the phone. They need to know what our usual cost is. I tell every single patient our usual session costs are 225. I let them know that it's an investment, right? I let them know that most of our patients, they do go on to purchase a treatment package with us. However, I don't give them, I try not to give them the price. I usually try to give them a range of what that single session cost might look like. And then from there, I want to make sure I'm listening to this person's tone, and I want to make sure I'm listening to how this person has received this information. Because what a lot of your front desk will do is they'll give them this information. You've got scripts, maybe you got it from our school community or whatever, and you've gone through this closing portion of the pitch, and this person just sounds unsure. It's like, well, hey, how does that sound? Does that sound like what you're looking for? And they're like, yeah, I think so. That's not real confident, right? Like that's not somebody who's like a resounding yes, like I'm in, like I'm bought into this process. And at that point, we need to ask them, well, hey, you sound a little unsure. Like, was there other questions that you had or concerns that you had? Right? Like now I've opened the door to be able to answer those questions. Because if we don't answer those questions and we don't listen into the tone of their voice, they're either going to cancel, they're going to no-show, or there's no chance that they're actually going to convert to a plan of care as I'm sitting here talking to these people on the phone, right? Or as I'm waiting on them to come into the clinic. And so we want to make sure that we handle all of that stuff and get it all out of the way. Because there's nothing worse than somebody asking about insurance. And I actually ask our therapist this, I mostly lead our team at this point in the clinic, and as opposed to treating, and I get them to submit a report to me at the end of the week that talks about objections they're getting in the clinic if they got any. And I always monitor for patients who ask about insurance or cost, those kind of things. Because if that's not handled on the phone, we're going to have we need to go back, we need to listen to that first phone call, and maybe we need to tweak some of the language or some of the questions that we're asking, or just merely being an open door towards the back end of our call to actually handle these cost and insurance objections. And that's the biggest like gear shift that I saw in our practice when we started handling that. Like I just could not understand why we weren't converting as many patients as we should be converting, despite having even more leads coming in, and why we weren't growing. And it's simply because we weren't handling cost and insurance objections on the phone upfront, managing expectations, right? Because somebody's expectations, if they're mismanaged on the phone, and when they show up, and if it's a different experience or you're asking for more money than they were expecting, you're going to convert 0% of the time, right? And these patients, they need to understand the journey, right? They need to understand this isn't a one and done type situation. Just because I'm running a front end offer of $67 doesn't mean I'm going to solve all of your problems in one session. Like I tell patients all the time when I was treating, like if I could solve your pain and problem in one session, like I'd have a line wrapped 10 times around the building, right? It's like people would want to just come in and be healed, right? But that's just not the reality of what, especially musculoskeletal, but any other things that going on in the body too. Like it's just never a one and done situation. Or if, you're a dental practice and maybe you only see people twice a year, right, for their routine cleaning and maybe do some x-rays and those kind of things, like just frame up the journey. Let patients know what exactly that journey looks like so that they aren't blindsided when you ask about, hey, scheduling your follow-up or, purchasing a plan of care. Like if there's a disconnect between what you're asking in the clinic versus what you're telling them on the phone, that's how you A, make patients mad, or B, they just don't convert. And now you're sitting here spending more money on marketing. You're trying to drive more patients to the door when really you've got enough patients. You just need to capture and maximize the amount of people that you're talking to on the phone. So that's the big thing with these calls. Let's remove all the fluff. We don't care about the gadgets that you have. We don't care about the certifications you have. I don't care how much one-on-one time you spend with patients. All of that stuff patients don't care about. But really, we need to find two things on the phone call. What's the problem? Why is the problem actually a problem? And then let's handle every bit of cost and insurance objections before this person actually comes in and before we close on the phone and get them into the clinic. And so if you can do those things, those two things alone will absolutely skyrocket your conversions and really change what's going on in your practice in this particular season. So, you can check out some other trainings now that you know how to, like the things you should include. Like I said, we have a red flags training that I did last week that's absolutely incredible on big major red flags to avoid on the first phone call. If you need any other additional resources, I will link our school community below, which is absolutely where I've got everything I know about the front desk. There's over 2 hours of free trainings in there, and would love to have you on the inside of the community if you're not there. And otherwise, thanks for joining in. Talk soon.